You may or may not know that Dallas and Oklahoma City are 3 hours apart by car. You just go straight north from Dallas to Oklahoma City on I-35 or straight south from Oklahoma City to Dallas on I-35. It's a really common thing for people to move from OKC to Dallas or opposite. And if you're thinking about moving to either one, perhaps you have looked at both cities, so I want to compare and contrast for you. Are these cities similar? I don't think so. This is my opinion. I really don't think they're that similar. So we're gonna cover a ton of differences and we'll talk about the similarities in between that as well, and probably the biggest similarity at the end. One thing that kind of shocks me, and I think maybe other people too, is that you would think that like Oklahoma City and Dallas would both be representative of their respective states, that Oklahoma City would be like what all of Oklahoma would be, and it's not. And Dallas is the same way. It's not truly that representative of Texas as a whole. It's kind of its own thing. So each city, of course, has its own identifying marker that you see in photos in the financial district. So for OKC, it is definitely Devon Tower, which is the largest or the tallest building in Oklahoma. And then in Dallas, it's typically gonna be the Reunion Tower, which is that like light up ball thing. I know it because of watching Walker, Texas Ranger as a kid. Or it's gonna be Fountain Place, which is that triangular building that you see in Dallas's skyline. I'm Marcie Billen and I'm a real estate agent, and you'll find all of my information in the description below. Oklahoma City was settled in 1889 during what's known as the Land Run. It's one of several land runs that happened in Oklahoma, and then there were more, of course, across the US. But on April 22nd, 1889, around 10,000 people settled in Oklahoma City, or what we know as Oklahoma City today. Before the land run happened, Oklahoma City was in what's known as unassigned lands. Were there people living here? Yep, those people were Native Americans, and maybe some others, but mostly Native Americans. The land run itself is kind of a touchy subject. Dallas, on the other hand, it does have recorded inhabitants that predate the city itself, and those oldest inhabitants are members of the Caddo Native American tribe. And Dallas was incorporated into a formal city in 1856. So as you may have guessed, Oklahoma City is much smaller than Dallas. The population of OKC itself is around 700,000 people. The population of Dallas is around 1.3 million people. Those numbers are just for the cities themselves. Recently, Oklahoma City jumped up in the ranks for one of the largest cities in the US. We just jumped up to number 20, so the 20th largest city in the United States. And then Dallas is actually number 9, so it's the 9th largest city in the US. So in terms of metro areas, Oklahoma City has a population of around 1.3 million, so that's OKC, along with all of the suburbs. And then in Dallas, we're looking at a population of around 7.6 million people. That number is huge, and the reason that it's huge is because it includes Fort Worth and its suburbs as well. Fort Worth is hard, it's pretty much connected to Dallas, and of course DFW Airport is right in between them as well. So it's hard to get numbers separating Dallas from Fort Worth. I don't really talk about Fort Worth in this video. I don't know that much about it. The biggest thing about Fort Worth is that you can actually take a train from Oklahoma City, Norman, all the little stops along the way, all the way down to the Fort Worth stockyards, which can be fun. Oklahoma City has a notoriously huge landmass. It's one of the biggest cities in terms of landmass in the US, and it's around 621 square miles big. That is huge. And then Dallas's landmass is around 386 square miles. So it's a little more than half of what Oklahoma City is. Though it would probably take you longer to drive across Dallas because of traffic than OKC. A lot of OKC is actually very country-like, but it just has Oklahoma City addresses. Suburbs are really popular in both of these cities. So the 3 largest suburbs in OKC is Edmond, Norman, and Moore. And they all have populations under 150,000. The 3 largest suburbs in Dallas are Irving, Plano, and Arlington, and they all have populations over 200,000. So in Oklahoma City, you can basically get the small town feel, right? really close to OKC. In Dallas, you're always gonna kind of have that metro feel, even in the suburbs. Some of them aren't like that, but you know what I mean. So in terms of demographics, I do talk about demographics, but I put it in my blog post because it's a lot of percentages, a lot of numbers. And so I'm gonna link the blog post at the end of the video, but then also you can find it in the description below. So you can check out the demographics for each city. Cost of living in OKC versus Dallas. This is always, of course, one of the big questions. And a lot of the reason that people end up choosing OKC instead of Dallas, because you really do have to make some compromises here. Dallas itself, the city, not the suburbs, has a much higher median list price. It's at $530,000 or right around $530,000 for median list price for houses in Dallas. It depends on which suburb you go to, like what the median list prices will be there. In OKC, the median list price at this moment is around $265,000. So it's a lot lower, almost half. Another big difference between the two cities, Dallas, or Texas really, doesn't have state income taxes. So you have your property taxes if you own property, and then you'll have higher usage and sales tax, and then your federal taxes, of course, but no state income taxes. Oklahoma City, or Oklahoma, is known for having pretty low property taxes, not the lowest in the country, but pretty low property taxes, especially compared to Texas. And then you also have 0 to 5% state income tax. So that's kind of where that balance is out there. This next statistic is really interesting. So the median income for a household in Oklahoma City is right at $57,000. I'm using medians here and not averages, so take that into account. I think it's more indicative of the area. So that's $57,000 per year for a household. This is reported. In Dallas, it's $55,000. That's what's reported. So what I think we're seeing here is that a lot of people who are living in Dallas are actually living in the suburbs, because I think at $530,000 as a median list price for a house, they're probably making more than what's reported within the city. One thing that's hard to understand about Oklahoma City is you look at it and you're like, okay, that's a really big city. Well, it's a lot of country, like I said, and we even have homes within OKC, within the city limits, that are located on an acre or more. And so a lot of these houses, they actually don't even have city water, they have well water. So I always ask people very specific questions whenever they want to move here and be in the country, because you can technically live in Oklahoma City and definitely have a country feel to your life. Dallas is way more densely populated than Oklahoma City's giant landmass. So you're probably thinking, man, she's not giving her opinion at all. Yeah, I just gave you a bunch of facts. I do have opinions, and I am from Oklahoma, and I really don't like Dallas very much. I have friends that were from Dallas, because they went to school here at OU. I visit Dallas somewhat often, but honestly, I don't really like it. To me, it feels like a sea of concrete and really aggressive drivers. So I don't want to bore you with just facts and figures, so let's dive into some more opinionated things about both cities. So there are things that you can get in Dallas that you absolutely cannot get in Oklahoma City. Dallas has much better shopping, okay? So there are things that Handsome is my husband, we go to Dallas to get because we literally have to. And his family loves to go to Dallas because there's so many more Asian options like Ranch 99 or H Mart, lots of Asian restaurants to eat at. Handsome's family is Chinese. They're from Taiwan and China. Oklahoma City has a few things that we have: supermarkets, Asian supermarkets, and then we have Asian restaurants, of course, a very large Vietnamese population for our city. However, it's not as good in terms of options here in OKC as it is in Dallas. So both OKC and Dallas have NBA teams, basketball teams. Really, the Thunder, which is Oklahoma City's team, is one of the things that has helped Oklahoma City grow so much economically, and that was all planned, of course. And then I think Dallas is the Mavericks. I don't know, but I don't like sports very much. You can go Google that. All I know is the Thunder games can be a lot of fun. I don't really like crowds, but if you do, it's just a fun night out, and the fans are rated the best in the country, which is what makes it fun. My guess is that you came to this video not to see like all the facts and figures, but to see like a, local person's opinion. So here's one of the things that I've noticed from people, that I've heard people say, and I notice it myself, is if you spend a lot of time in Dallas and then come to Oklahoma City is gonna feel like a spa to you because life is just a lot slower. I think driving is one of the main factors in this. So OKC is one of the major like intersections in the US. It is where I-35, I-44, and I-40 all meet and intersect. And we use those to get around OKC. Dallas has a ton of highways, way more than OKC. It's the intersection of like I-20, I-45, and I-35, and some other ones that are smaller, but those are the major ones that go through Dallas. Man, those overpasses in Dallas, I hate them so much. So if I'm driving in Dallas by myself or with my husband, I'll look ahead on my Maps app, where I'm going. And if it's gonna make me go over one of those huge overpasses, the ones I'm talking about, you feel like you are in the air. Like you're not close enough to the ground to feel the ground. I will go the wrong direction just so I don't have to drive over one of these things. We don't have that many of those in OKC. Like I'm just really afraid of heights. So there are 2 bridges in OKC that I really, really don't like. One of them is new and it's where I-44 connects on the west or on the east side of OKC. It's an overpass. And then the other one is actually on a turnpike where it's called the Kickapoo Turnpike. It's one of our newest ones and it's this huge overpass that goes over I-40 and I really don't like them. Like I just kind of, tense up as I'm driving. I probably shouldn't be, but that's what it feels like. I'll tell you a little secret. So I live in Norman, Oklahoma. So that's where the University of Oklahoma is. We're really close to Texas. So we get a lot of students from Texas. A lot of, my roommates and friends were from Dallas or surrounding areas. And sometimes even further south. We also get a lot of Texas traffic for our football games because they're a really big deal. And OU is a great school, so I totally get it. I don't know. Do Dallas drivers go to a special school where they become especially aggressive or just learn to break the law? I don't know, but here's what I noticed. And I think it makes sense with the way driving is in Dallas. Like it makes sense to me as I'm driving through Dallas. But what'll happen is we'll have a Texas driver in front of us or behind us or whatever. You can see that they're from Texas because of their plates. And if they're about to miss their exit or their turn or something like that, they will break every law imaginable not to miss it. Stopping in the middle of the street, making random U-turns, speeding up really fast, slowing down really hard. That's what I see them doing. And in OKC, if you're gonna miss something, you just drive on past it. And I think it makes sense in Dallas because if you do miss something, it'll add on like 10 to 15 minutes to your trip, where in OKC, it'll add on a few minutes if you miss your exit or your turn or something. So that's one of the biggest things that I see with Dallas drivers, because you will hear Oklahomans complain about Texas drivers all the time. So Dallas is decidedly more left-leaning or more Democrat than Oklahoma City is. Oklahoma City is pretty conservative, and Oklahoma City is the most liberal city in Oklahoma. So put those numbers together in your head. Dallas itself, Dallas County, tends to vote blue in elections. Oklahoma City is kind of split on some different things, but as an overall, like on a federal level, they end up being red. So a common complaint that I get about Oklahoma City is that there's nothing to do, or there's very little to do. And I get that, but Oklahoma City's been really growing a lot in the past 20-ish years. So I think you really don't have that complaint to make too much anymore. So different things we like to do in Oklahoma City. Eating, of course, we have amazing restaurants. The restaurant scene is really up and coming, and we have some great new restaurants in the city itself, and the Thunder really helps with that. We also have whitewater rafting, which is kind of wild that we have that here. One of the things that they're also doing with the economic growth plan of Oklahoma City is trying to help more Olympic water sports come to our river, and that's like where the river whitewater rafting comes from. I love going to museums in OKC. We have several and they are excellent. And then of course we have 12 districts in OKC. They all kind of have something to offer and they're all growing. Dallas has some great things to do. I mean, you can pretty much anything that you would possibly want to do, you're gonna find in Dallas. Some of my favorite things are visiting the Bishop Arts District. I love Deep Ellum, of course. Ansem and I traveled down there for like stadium concerts. Like we'll never have stadium concerts in OKC like they do in Dallas. It's just probably not gonna happen. So the biggest similarity between these two cities, I would say, is probably weather. Each, like OKC and Dallas, each have very distinct seasons. We each have 4 distinct seasons. Oklahoma City gets more snow. We get around 5.8 average inches per year of snow, where Dallas only gets 1.2 inches a year, around that. I think that OKC takes better care of their roads in the cold weather. That's from my own personal experience driving in Dallas during cold weather. Dallas and OKC get incredibly hot during the summer. OKC is usually a few degrees cooler. One of the reasons is elevation, but the other one is that we just don't have as much concrete. Dallas has way more concrete than OKC. Do you need more information about Oklahoma City or Oklahoma in general? Go ahead and check out this blog post. It's gonna be right here. And then you should definitely go watch this video next. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate you watching.